The payment terminal gave two flat electronic beeps. Declined. In the bright reception area of the neighborhood veterinary clinic, the sound carried farther than it should have. Afternoon sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching dust in the air and reflecting off a row of stainless steel exam room doors. Somewhere behind the reception wall, a dog barked twice and went quiet. I stood several feet from the counter with a folder of quarterly tax documents tucked under one arm. I'd stopped by to deliver them to the clinic owner on my way back to the office. The woman at the payment terminal had more immediate problems. Chloe Bennett held a small terrier mix against her chest. His front left leg was wrapped in a white bandage, and his head rested against her shoulder as though even keeping his eyes open required too much effort. I knew Chloe. Everyone within 3 blocks knew Chloe. Her family had owned Bennett's Bakery since before I was born. I bought black coffee there twice a week, usually before she had time to put the second tray of pastries into the display case. The receptionist lowered her voice. "I'm sorry, Miss Bennett, it declined again." Chloe stared at the terminal. "I transferred money this morning. The surgery charge is $840. "I know. We can try another card." Chloe looked down at Rusty. "I don't have another card." 3 people in the waiting area suddenly became fascinated by their phones. Chloe shifted Rusty carefully and tried the card again. 2 beeps. Declined. Her fingers stayed on the plastic for a second before she pulled it free. I stepped forward but stopped far enough away that she had room to turn. "Chloe!" She looked over. Recognition made the embarrassment worse. "Ethan!" I took my wallet from my pocket. "If you're comfortable with it, I can cover this on my personal card and we can write it as a zero-interest loan." "No." That answer came immediately. "Fair." I put the wallet back into my pocket. Then Rusty shifted in her arms and let out a small, tired whine. Chloe shut her eyes. When she opened them again, she looked at me rather than the floor. "You would put it in writing?" "Yes." $840, no interest." "Yes." "And I set the repayment schedule." "As long as there is one." She exhaled through her nose. "Fine." I handed my personal card to the receptionist. The machine processed for less than a second. One soft approval tone. The receipt printer began to chatter. Chloe watched the paper come out. I signed my copy and handed her the second one. "Keep that. You keep receipts for everything?" "I work in finance." "I know. I was hoping it was only a professional flaw." Rusty lifted his head slightly. I looked at him. "He disagrees. He's heavily medicated." "Then his judgment may be compromised." That earned the smallest smile. It disappeared when we stepped into the parking lot. Heat rose from the pavement. Chloe secured Rusty in a padded carrier on the passenger seat of her faded silver sedan, checked the bandage twice, then closed the door carefully. Instead of walking around to the driver's side, she put both hands on the roof of the car. "What else happened?" I asked. She turned. "What makes you think something else happened?" "You negotiated an $800 loan while holding a dog that just had surgery, and that wasn't the part making your hands shake." She looked down at them. Then she reached through the open window and pulled a folded envelope from the front seat. "Vance." That got my attention. Vance Property Group had bought most of our commercial block the previous year. They owned the hardware store, whose books my firm managed, the pharmacy, 2 vacant units, and the mixed-use building containing Bennett's Bakery. The bakery occupied the ground floor. Chloe lived in the apartment above it. The same master lease covered both spaces. If she lost one, she lost both. What did they send? CAM reconciliation. Common area maintenance. She passed me the notice. $4,180. Due in 30 days. The letter stated that failure to pay the adjusted balance could constitute a lease default. What are they charging? Roof replacement, water adjustments, waste fees, an administrative charge I don't understand. I read the page again. A number near the bottom looked familiar. Same sub-metering company as Cooper Hardware. Yes, that was my practical reason to pay attention. 3 months earlier, my business partner Miles and I had found a meter allocation error at the hardware store next door. It had been corrected after we documented that the store had been charged for water used by a vacant unit. If the same pattern appeared on Chloe's statements, this was not simply a neighbor asking me for a favor. It might affect another client on the same property system. "What does Vance want?" I asked. Chloe leaned back against the car. "Vacant possession?" "Why?" "The developer behind the block wants the entire corner for a mixed-use redevelopment. Vance has already bought out 2 tenants. They offered me $12,000 to surrender my lease." "You refused?" "My father spent 32 years building that bakery. I'm not closing it so someone can put a national coffee chain downstairs and luxury apartments upstairs." She nodded toward the envelope. Now this. There were at least 2 reasons she could not simply walk away. The first was money. The bakery had enough revenue to function, but not enough cash to absorb thousands in disputed charges while paying a commercial litigation retainer. The second was structural. Her ovens, mixers, walk-in refrigeration, customer base, and apartment were all tied to that location. Moving would not mean finding another storefront. It would mean rebuilding her livelihood and her home at the same time. "Do you already have an attorney?" I asked. "I called one this morning. $5,000 retainer." "That doesn't surprise me." "It surprised my checking account." I handed the letter back. "I can audit the charges. That's my lane." "And the lease?" "I can flag financial provisions and discrepancies. Anything about enforcement, eviction procedure, or legal rights goes to an attorney." She studied me for several seconds. "I'm not taking more free help." "I didn't offer free help." Her eyebrows rose. "I charge offensively reasonable rates." "That sounds impossible." "Ask Miles." "I don't know Miles." "You would like him. He believes I overcomplicate coffee." "You drink black coffee." "Exactly. Nothing to complicate." Another small smile. Then Chloe looked at Rusty through the car window. "Come to the bakery tonight. 7? For the audit? And the vet loan. You want paperwork?" "I want everything clear." "So do I." "Good." She opened the driver's door. "Dinner's included." That sounds dangerously close to barter. "It's chicken and vegetables, Ethan." I withdraw the objection. At 7 that evening, the bakery's neon sign was dark. I knocked once on the glass. Chloe unlocked the brass deadbolt and stepped aside. The shop smelled of vanilla, toasted sugar, butter, and old wood. Most of the pastries had been cleared from the display case, but 3 loaves of bread cooled on a rack behind the counter. Rusty slept in a plaid dog bed near the office door, his bandaged leg propped on a yellow towel. "He ate half his dinner," Chloe said. "Good." "He hates the medication." "Reasonable?" "He also hates you." I looked at the sleeping dog. "He seems devastated by my presence." "He remembers the credit card." "That sounds more like gratitude." Chloe led me into the back office. The room was barely large enough for a battered metal desk, 2 folding chairs, 3 filing cabinets, and several years of receipts that had apparently declared independence from any filing system. I set down my laptop. "You know I sell coffee," she said. "I brought my own." She looked at the thermos in my hand. "That is insulting." "You charge retail." She stared at me, then laughed. There it was. The first uncomplicated sound I had heard from her all day. She put 2 plates of chicken, roasted carrots, and potatoes on a stainless prep table just outside the office. I opened my briefcase. First came a 1-page loan agreement. Principal, $840. Interest, 0. First payment due in 30 days. Repayment schedule to be chosen by Chloe after we saw what the bakery's cash position looked like. She read every line. "Good?" She signed. I signed. One problem became a document instead of a debt hanging silently between us. Then she brought out the Vance file. The original lease was 12 years old. Her father's signature appeared on the final page. I found the first useful clause after 23 minutes. Come here. Chloe carried her plate over. I pointed to section 4. The lease capped Chloe's share of certain capital improvements at 5% of annual base rent unless she specifically approved a larger project in writing. The current reconciliation allocated part of a roof replacement to her unit. How much? I opened the spreadsheet. 12% of annual base rent if their numbers are accurate. That's more than double the cap. Yes. Can they do that? That is a lawyer question. Chloe made a face. You're no fun. I'm very expensive fun. What can you tell me? I can tell you the invoice conflicts with the financial cap written into the lease. I flipped to the utility pages. And I can tell you this water allocation deserves an audit. Why? Because Cooper Hardware found a sub-meter error in February. She leaned closer. How much? Enough that Vance corrected 6 months of statements. Did they check mine? That is what we find out. I opened a yellow legal pad and drew 3 columns. Charge, document, question. Tomorrow, I'll compare your last 12 months of CAM statements against the lease cap and municipal utility records available to us. And the 30-day notice? We send the documents to commercial counsel before anyone tells you what that deadline legally means. I can't afford $5,000. I know. I took out my phone. Miles found a small business attorney last year for one of our clients. Her name is Rachel Kim. She offers limited scope lease review. You already know what she charges? No. I dialed Miles. He answered with, if this is about the Henderson quarterly file, I already fixed it. It isn't. Then I'm suspicious. I need Rachel Kim's number. Silence. What have you volunteered for? I haven't volunteered. Chloe leaned against the filing cabinet, clearly listening. Miles continued. That sentence has never been less convincing. Number, please. He gave it to me. Then added, and Ethan? Yes? You have 3 client calls tomorrow. I know. I'm not becoming your entire firm because you found another broken spreadsheet. Chloe looked at me. I turned slightly away. Noted. Miles hung up. Chloe folded her arms. Your partner thinks this is a bad idea. My partner thinks sleep is important. He may be right. Rarely. The following morning, Rachel reviewed the lease, the Vance notice, and my preliminary financial flags. Her answer was cautious. That made me trust her immediately. The lease has a written dispute procedure, she said over speakerphone. I'll prepare the notice. Do not assume sending it automatically stops enforcement. I'll also ask Vance to agree in writing not to take further possession steps while the reconciliation dispute is reviewed. Chloe sat beside me at the bakery table. What if they refuse? Then we decide the next legal step based on what they actually do. No promises. No magic. A process. For the next 2 weeks, the bakery became our second office. Not every night. Miles would have changed the locks to my consulting firm if I tried. Mondays and Thursdays, I worked at Chloe's metal desk after closing. Tuesdays belonged to my own clients. Fridays I reviewed whatever Rachel needed. The rhythm settled naturally. Black coffee for me. Vendor invoices for Chloe. Rusty asleep near the filing cabinet. On the first Thursday, Chloe placed a mug beside my laptop. I looked inside. Tea. You have coffee? You have already had 4. That sounds judgmental. It's bookkeeping. I drank the tea. An hour later, the coffee in my thermos was untouched. By the end of week 2, the numbers were no longer a suspicion. They were a pattern. The roof charge exceeded the cap. Waste service fees appeared twice in 2 months. The bakery had been allocated water usage inconsistent with its own historical meter readings. And another tenant, the pharmacy, had received the same mysterious administrative surcharge. That mattered. Not because it proved some grand conspiracy. because the issue no longer existed only in Chloe's file. Miles called after I showed him the summary. I checked Cooper Hardware. And? Same admin code. How many months? 4. I sat back. Across the bakery office, Chloe was icing test cupcakes for a weekend order. What are you thinking? Miles asked. I'm thinking Rachel needs this. Good. You expected something else? I expected you to announce that you personally intended to defeat a property company before breakfast. I'm maturing. Terrifying. Rachel sent a formal accounting dispute and document request that afternoon. Vance acknowledged receipt. For several days, nothing happened. That was almost worse. Then week 3 arrived. Thursday at 2:16 p.m., Chloe sent me a photograph. A 3-day notice taped inside the bakery door. I was out of my chair before the image finished loading. Miles looked up from his desk. What? Vance, do you need me to cover 4:30? I stopped. He already knew the answer. Yes? Go? When I entered the bakery 20 minutes later, the lunch crowd was gone. Chloe sat alone near the front window. The notice lay flat on the table. This one did not rely on the disputed CAM balance. It alleged an immediate health and safety violation involving the grease interceptor in the rear alley and demanded that the condition be cured or possession surrendered according to the procedure cited by Vance's counsel. Chloe tapped the paper. They changed tactics. I read the municipal reference. When was the grease system last inspected? March. Certificate? Back office. She stood so quickly the chair legs scraped over tile. I already called a liquidator. That stopped me. What? If I sell the ovens before this turns into a lockout fight, I can still control the sale. If I wait until everything gets tied up... Did the liquidator give you a deadline? Tomorrow? Have you signed? No. Then don't cancel him because I say so. She stared at me. I put the notice on the table. Give Rachel 30 minutes. Her hands closed around the back of the chair. If she says this is real, then you decide with real information. And if we lose? I don't know. That answer hit harder than reassurance would have. Chloe turned away. Rusty limped slowly from behind the counter, bandage replaced now by a smaller wrap. He stopped beside her shoe. She bent and picked him up carefully. I called Rachel. The March inspection certificate existed. The city file showed the grease system had passed at the time. That did not automatically make Vance's new allegation false. Conditions could change. Rachel's recommendation was straightforward. Request an expedited municipal reinspection, provide the March certificate, and demand Vance identify the factual basis for its new claim. She also wrote to Vance's counsel requesting that no possession action occur until the alleged condition could be independently inspected. Vance did not agree immediately. 2 hours later, they did. 48-hour standstill. Not victory. Time. Chloe looked at the email on my phone. So I don't call the liquidator. You decide. She looked at Rusty. Then at the ovens behind the counter. She took out her own phone. I'm calling him. The next morning, Municipal Inspector David Higgins arrived through the city's expedited complaint process. I had never met him. That was better. No favors. No useful old friendship appearing precisely when the plot needed it. Rachel joined by phone. A Vance representative named Grant Mercer stood at the mouth of the alley with his company's facilities coordinator. Higgins inspected the grease system for 20 minutes. He checked the trap, the service log, the pumping record, the drainage. Finally, he straightened. I don't see an emergency environmental condition. Chloe's hands loosened from around the strap of her bag. Higgins continued, You should schedule routine pumping next month. I'll enter today's inspection into the city file. Rachel's voice came through Chloe's phone. Mr. Higgins, can you provide a written inspection result? Yes. Grant Mercer stepped forward. This does not resolve the tenant's other lease defaults. Rachel answered before either Chloe or I could. We agree it does not resolve the entire dispute. It resolves the factual allegation underlying yesterday's health notice. Grant did not like that wording, which was one reason Rachel had the law degree and I did not. The 3-day notice was withdrawn that afternoon. The CAM dispute remained. Relief came in pieces. That night, Chloe locked the bakery door at 6. Instead of invoices, she placed 2 bowls of soup on the small cafe table. "What is this?" I asked. "Dinner. We have work. We had a city inspector in my alley at 8 this morning. We get 20 minutes. I sat. Rusty wandered over wearing no bandage at all. He placed his front paw cautiously on the floor. Chloe watched him take 3 steps. Then 5. He gets his final follow-up in 3 weeks, she said. Good. You paid for the dramatic part. I expect him to remember. He barely remembers where his food bowl is. We ate. For 20 minutes, nobody said Cam. Week 4 brought document production from Vance. Week 5 brought leverage. The pharmacy's statements matched the administrative fee pattern. Cooper Hardware's did too. Miles helped me build a block-wide comparison showing exactly where charges diverged from each tenant's written lease provisions. Don't turn this into a crusade, he told me while we reviewed the summary at our office. I'm not. You have 6 color-coded tabs. That is organization. You haven't taken a full weekend off in a month. I'll survive. Miles closed the binder. That isn't what I asked. I looked at him. He pushed the file back. Finish the job, then go somewhere that does not contain a spreadsheet. That Friday, Rachel used the accounting findings in settlement discussions with Vance's counsel. Not as a threat to call the press, not as an announcement that my financial consulting firm would file lawsuits it had no authority to file. As documented financial evidence, the owner had choices. Continue the lease dispute and defend the accounting methodology across several tenants, or correct the statements and negotiate with Chloe. By week 6, they chose negotiation. The final meeting took place in Rachel's conference room. Grant Mercer attended for Vance. Their outside counsel sat beside him. Chloe sat beside Rachel. I was there as Chloe's financial consultant to explain the audit numbers. Miles had reviewed my firm's conflict disclosures and client hours before I went. Nothing hidden. Nothing improvised. Grant opened with a proposal. Vance would withdraw the disputed balance and issue an account credit for verified overbilling. In exchange, Chloe would sign a revised lease confirming updated maintenance procedures. Rachel slid the draft toward Chloe. Chloe read the first page. Then the second. How long? 5 years with a 5-year renewal option, Grant said. No. He blinked. Chloe put the contract down. I'm not rebuilding this business every 5 years because your ownership strategy changes. Grant leaned back. What are you proposing? 10 years. That is not commercially reasonable. For you? For the property? Chloe opened the lease to the CAM provision. Then keep the current lease and correct the overcharges. I'm not required to replace a contract that already exists just because you prefer a different one. Grant looked at his attorney. His attorney said nothing. Chloe continued. If Vance wants a revised lease, I want 10 years at the current base rent with scheduled increases already defined. The capital improvement cap stays. Utilities are separately metered. No retroactive administrative charges without supporting invoices. She glanced at Rachel. Am I missing anything? Rachel pointed to a note. Assignment and casualty language. Chloe nodded. And those... Grant rubbed his thumb over the corner of the draft. That requires owner approval? Then get owner approval. No speech. No shaking voice. No dramatic declaration about reclaiming power. She had the numbers, the lawyer, and 6 weeks of evidence. She used them. The meeting adjourned for 90 minutes. Miles texted while we waited. Client calls covered. Your business still exists. Try not to acquire a bakery. I showed Chloe. She laughed. Your partner thinks I'm dangerous. My partner thinks everything that interrupts quarterly filing is dangerous. Does he like pastries? Everyone likes pastries. Useful. Vance returned with authority to settle. The final terms were not everything Chloe asked for. Real negotiations rarely were. The lease ran 10 years. Base rent increased on a fixed schedule. The original capital improvement cap remained. Utility allocation became separately documented. The fabricated balance was withdrawn. Vance credited verified overbilling against future rent and refunded the portion that exceeded the agreed credit. The health notice disappeared from the tenant file. Most importantly, the mixed-use lease continued to cover both Bennett's Bakery and the apartment above it. Chloe kept her business and her home. Rachel reviewed every page before Chloe signed. I did not tell her the contract was ironclad. I was not qualified to. Rachel told her the document matched the negotiated terms and explained the remaining risks. Chloe signed. Grant signed for Vance. That was it. No applause. Just paper sliding into folders. Outside Rachel's office, Chloe stopped on the sidewalk. 6 weeks earlier, I'd watched her card decline while Rusty shook against her chest. Now she took a folded check from her handbag. What is that? Your loan. Chloe, $840? I looked at the check. Your first payment wasn't due all at once. I know. Then why all at once? Because the Vance refund cleared yesterday. The bakery has 6 weeks of operating reserve again, and I already funded next month's flour order. That was the answer I needed. Not pride. Cash flow. She put the check into my hand. Debt closed? Debt closed. And your consulting invoice? Goes to the bakery through my firm. Good. Which means Miles will harass me if you're late. I'm more afraid of him than you. You should be. 3 days later, my firm signed an ongoing quarterly consulting agreement with Bennett's Bakery. Miles was the account manager. I remained available for strategic review. That was deliberate. Chloe's financial relationship belonged to the firm, not to whatever might happen between us. On Saturday morning, Rusty had his final veterinary follow-up. I was not planning to go. Chloe called at 9. You busy? I'm reviewing a manufacturing forecast. That sounds miserable. It pays well. Rusty has an appointment at 10. I remember. I know you do. A pause. Come with us? Not accounting. Not Vance. Not alone. Just an invitation. I'll meet you there. The veterinary clinic looked almost exactly as it had on day 1. Same bright windows. Same smell of disinfectant. Same payment terminal. Rusty, however, walked through the lobby on all 4 legs and attempted to investigate a display of dental chews with professional commitment. The veterinarian cleared him. At the desk, the receptionist entered the follow-up charge. Chloe inserted her own card. The terminal processed. 1 clean approval tone. She looked at me. I looked at the machine. Better sound. Much. The receipt printed. She folded it into her wallet. Paid from the operating account. I wasn't going to ask. You were thinking it. I was thinking about the dog. You're a terrible liar. Outside, late afternoon sun warmed the sidewalk. Rusty trotted ahead on his leash. The bakery was 3 blocks away, its blue awning visible at the end of the street. Chloe slowed. Rusty and I are having dinner upstairs tonight. I glanced at her. Is he cooking? He contributes emotionally. Then I have concerns about execution. She smiled. The quarterly books can wait until Monday. They can. No spreadsheets. Risky. No CAM. Excellent. She held out her hand. Come with us? I looked at it. Then at her. The loan was repaid. The lease was signed. Rachel had closed the legal file. Miles managed the bakery account. No money, contract, housing decision, or professional favor depended on what I said next. I took her hand. Yes. We walked the remaining 3 blocks together. At Bennett's Bakery, the front windows glowed gold in the evening light. Vanilla and burnt sugar drifted through the open kitchen door. Rusty collapsed beneath the table after convincing Chloe that recovery required a piece of roasted chicken. She poured me black coffee. I looked at the cup. You remember I'm off duty. You drink black coffee recreationally too. That is private information. Too late. Upstairs, the apartment was small and warm, not elegant, not optimized. There were cookbooks on one chair, Rusty's toys under another, and a stack of bakery invoices Chloe had deliberately left unopened on the counter. My phone buzzed. Miles. I turned it face down. Chloe noticed. Is your firm collapsing? Apparently not. How do you know? If it were urgent, Miles would call twice. The phone buzzed again. I looked at it. Chloe laughed. Go ahead. The message read, Stop checking your phone. Nothing is on fire. I put it back down. Professional guidance? Good partner. Annoying partner. Rusty rolled onto his side beneath the table. Chloe reached across the wood. Not for a lease. Not for an invoice. Her fingers settled over mine. 6 weeks of numbers had taught me everything I needed to know about the bakery. This was the first thing that did not need calculating. I turned my hand over and held hers. Downstairs, the refrigeration compressor hummed steadily. A tray timer chimed in the kitchen. Nothing was overdue. Nothing was being taken away. And for once, I had nowhere else I wanted to be. The end. Closing thoughts. Core lesson. Ethan's numbers helped Chloe keep the bakery, but Chloe made every final decision about her business and home. Green flag. He gave her evidence, options, and professional support without tying financial help to anything personal. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.